All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are going deep into a period that many call the Dark Ages.
Oh, the Dark Ages.
The early medieval period,
Right.
roughly 5th to the 10th centuries.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking at three very different places, the Byzantine Empire, Islamic Iberia, and Carolingian France. And we're going to see if maybe Golden Age might be a better term.
You know, it's really interesting how that Dark Ages label just won't go away.
Yeah.
It really is a vast oversimplification.
Yeah.
Because, yes, a lot of things changed after the Roman Empire fell in Western Europe.
Right.
But decline wasn't the whole story by any stretch.
So are you saying we've been kind of misled? That there's more to this era than we might think?
Absolutely. Think of it more as a time of transformation with new powers and new cultural shifts emerging.
Okay.
We're talking art, science, governance. Really remarkable achievements that I think really challenged that darkness narrative.
Okay, I am intrigued. Let's start with the Byzantine Empire. And I have to admit, when I picture the Byzantines in my mind, I always think of them as kind of clinging to the Roman Empire.
Oh, yeah?
You know, kind of following in Rome's footsteps, but not really doing much. That was really groundbreaking.
But that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because, yeah, they saw themselves as the continuation of Rome.
Right.
But they weren't just copying.
Okay.
They integrated Greek language and, very importantly, the Christian faith into their culture.
Right.
And their capital, Constantinople. That wasn't just some lesser Rome. It was this thriving cosmopolitan hub,
Wow.
bustling with trade from everywhere. China, India, Russia, you name it.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're walking down the street and you see silks from the East,
Yeah.
spices from India.
Uh-huh.
It must have been incredible. And what about the Hagia Sophia? Can you even imagine seeing that in person?
It really was revolutionary for its time.
Yeah.
That massive dome, designed to evoke the heavens, it was nicknamed Heaven on Earth, for a reason. I mean, can you imagine the impact of that architecture? The way it must have made people feel the power of the Byzantine Empire.
Absolutely. It's like more than a building. It's a statement. But was it all just for show? I mean, were they really innovating or were they just copying the Romans?
Well, they did preserve a lot of the Roman legal and administrative structures.
Okay.
But they also went beyond that.
Okay.
Remember Emperor Justinian
Yeah.
and his famous law code?
Yes.
Well, that wasn't just copying.
Okay.
It was systematically rethinking Roman law for a new era. And that had a lasting impact on European legal systems for centuries.
Oh, wow. So it's more like they were taking what worked and adapting it for the future.
Exactly.
Smart. What about their role in protecting all those old Greek and Roman texts? It's like they were running a giant medieval library, keeping all that knowledge from being lost.
And imagine if they hadn't done that.
Yeah.
Thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, so many others, their ideas might have just vanished.
It's incredible.
We really can't underestimate how important their work was to scholarship.
Right.
They weren't just hoarding scrolls.
Right.
They were making sure that knowledge would get passed down to future generations.
That's amazing. So they were like the guardians of Western intellectual history. Okay, so we've got a powerful capital city, groundbreaking legal reforms, and they're saving all this ancient knowledge. What else made the Byzantine Empire's golden age so special?
Well, it wasn't all just about laws and books.
Okay.
Their art was exquisite. Think about those incredibly detailed Byzantine mosaics.
Yeah.
Those weren't just decorations.
Right.
They were powerful expressions of faith and artistic skill.
Right.
They used tiny, tiny pieces of colored glass or stone.
Oh, wow.
It was incredibly painstaking work, but it resulted in these vibrantly detailed images.
I've seen some of those in museums, and they're absolutely beautiful.
They are.
You can really sense the dedication and artistry.
Mm-hmm.
But all this splendor must have come at a cost, right? How did they manage to maintain such a vibrant empire for so long?
Well, their economic system was surprisingly strong. They controlled key trade routes, and the government really worked to make sure trade was fair.
Interesting.
So in the middle of all this cultural and intellectual growth, they were also building a stable and prosperous economy.
It really does sound like a well-rounded golden age. I mean, intellectual, artistic, economically strong. I think it's pretty clear the Dark Ages label just doesn't do the Byzantine Empire justice.
It really doesn't.
Huh.
Now, are you ready to travel to a very different kind of golden age in Islamic Iberia?
Lead the way. I can't wait to see what we discover. Okay, so we're moving right along on our journey through these golden ages. We just talked about the Byzantine Empire, and now I'm really curious to hear about Islamic Iberia?
Look at
What
that.
made this period so unique?
Well, picture this.
Okay.
A society where Muslims, Christians, and Jews are not only coexisting,
Right.
but often collaborating in different fields.
Wow.
This atmosphere of tolerance and exchange of ideas,
Yeah.
that was really a key ingredient in Islamic Iberia's golden age.
That's pretty remarkable, especially when you consider all the religious conflict that was happening in other parts of Europe at the time.
It was.
It sounds almost utopian,
Yeah.
but how did that tolerance actually translate into achievements?
Well, for one thing, Cordoba, the capital of Islamic Iberia,
Right.
it became this huge center of learning.
Okay.
We're talking libraries just overflowing with manuscripts,
Oh.
and they attracted scholars from all over Europe and the Islamic world.
So it was like a medieval melting pot of ideas?
Yeah, exactly.
So cool. I bet those libraries were incredible.
Oh, they were.
Did they just preserve ancient wisdom, or were they making new discoveries?
They did both,
Okay.
but they also made really groundbreaking discoveries, especially in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine.
Wow, so they were building on the knowledge of past civilizations, but also forging their own path.
Exactly.
Didn't they also play a big part in translating all those Greek and Roman texts?
Absolutely. And without those translations, a lot of those texts might have been lost forever.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
They really understood the importance of preserving knowledge
right.
from different cultures, which is, something I think we could all learn from today.
Absolutely. It's amazing how interconnected the world was even back then.
It is.
Okay, so we've got this vibrant intellectual center, but what about the arts? What was the aesthetic side of Islamic Iberia's golden age like?
Think stunning architecture,
Okay.
intricate geometric patterns,
Right.
and the art of calligraphy taken to a whole new level.
Okay.
Their mosques and palaces were designed to inspire awe,
Right.
a true testament to their artistry and craftsmanship.
I've always loved Islamic art and architecture.
Mm.
I mean, the attention to detail,
Yeah,
the sense of balance and harmony.
it's beautiful.
It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
But I know it takes more than just beautiful buildings to make a golden age.
Right.
What was fueling all this achievement? Was there like a strong economic foundation?
Yes, definitely. Islamic Iberia had a thriving economy,
Okay.
driven by both agriculture and trade.
Okay.
They were really advanced when it came to agricultural techniques.
Right.
And their merchants, they had these vast trade networks that spanned across continents.
It's incredible.
And that economic prosperity
Yeah.
that gave them the resources and the stability they needed for all of their cultural and intellectual achievements.
So it's like we're seeing this pattern here,
Mm.
Stability, intellectual curiosity, economic strength. Those seem to be the key ingredients for a golden age.
Right?
It makes you wonder if we could learn from these historical examples to create our own golden age today.
Absolutely.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
Right.
let's move on to our final destination, Carolingian France.
Okay.
This one, to me, feels the most medieval. I think knights and castles. But I am excited to see what we find.
You're in for a treat.
Okay.
Because while there were certainly knights and castles, Carolingian France was also a time of incredible intellectual and cultural revival, and that was largely thanks to their most famous ruler, Charlemagne.
Ah, Charlemagne. The name is legendary, but I have to admit, I mostly think of him for expanding his empire and conquering new lands.
He was definitely a conqueror,
Right.
but Charlemagne was more than just a warrior king.
Okay.
He was passionate about education
Oh, wow.
and really the driving force behind what we call the Carolingian Renaissance.
So he was conquering ignorance, too. I like that.
He was.
But what did this Carolingian Renaissance look like? What were some of its defining features?
Well, for one, Charlemagne established schools all across his empire,
Wow.
often attached to monasteries and cathedrals,
Okay.
and he invited scholars from all over Europe to his court.
So he created this vibrant intellectual hub.
He did.
That's pretty cool.
It was a really exciting time.
But wasn't the church still very powerful during this period?
Oh, absolutely.
How did that affect their intellectual pursuits?
Well, the church played a really important role in the Carolingian Renaissance.
Okay.
Monasteries especially became centers for preserving texts,
Okay.
teaching, and producing these amazing works of art like those illuminated manuscripts.
Oh, yeah, those illuminated manuscripts. I saw some in a museum once.
Yeah.
I was just blown away by the artistry.
Well,
Detail. It's incredible.
each one is a testament to their faith and their pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
They weren't just copying texts.
Right.
They were illuminating them with
Yeah.
these vibrant colors,
Yeah.
intricate calligraphy, even gold leaf.
It's like they were taking the written word and making it into an art form.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got schools and scholarship, art. Didn't they also come up with a new writing style?
They did. One of the biggest achievements of the Carolingian Renaissance was the development of Carolingian minuscule.
What is that?
It's a new script
Okay.
that was much clearer and more legible than what they had been using.
Okay.
And it made it much easier to copy and read texts.
That sounds like a game changer.
Oh, it was.
It's amazing how something as simple as a new font could have such a ripple effect.
Think about it. Carolingian minuscule became the basis for a lot of the typefaces we use today.
It's incredible.
It just goes to show how innovations from the past can still shape our world today.
So we have Charlemagne, the education enthusiast. We have this flourishing intellectual scene.
Yeah.
And we even have a new font.
Uh-huh.
But was this all just intellectual growth, or were there other aspects to this Carolingian golden age?
Well, Charlemagne was a patron of the arts and learning,
Right.
but he was also a really good ruler and a very skilled military leader.
Right.
He unified his kingdom, reformed the legal system, and expanded his empire through conquest.
So he was a man of many talents,
He was a...
balancing all these intellectual pursuits
Mhm.
with the practicalities of running a vast empire
Exactly.
that takes skill.
He does.
But did this benefit the average person, or was it mostly focused on the elites?
Charlemagne understood that a truly great kingdom needed more than just military. So he standardized the currency, he encouraged trade, and he supported agricultural development.
Okay.
And all of that was aimed at improving the lives of his subjects.
So he wasn't just about winning battles.
No,
He actually wanted to create a stable and prosperous society.
he did.
It sounds like a pretty well-rounded approach to leadership.
Yeah, he saw how all these different aspects were connected.
Right.
The political, the economic, the intellectual, and the cultural.
Right.
And that kind of holistic vision, that was really key to his success.
It's amazing how these golden ages are really revealing a whole different side to the early medieval period.
It's a fascinating time.
But I can't help but wonder, was all this progress sustainable? What happened to the Carolingian Empire after Charlemagne died?
Well, the empire that Charlemagne built, sadly, it didn't last very long after his death.
Oh.
His successors, they weren't able to maintain his level of control.
Right.
And the empire was eventually divided
Okay.
among his grandsons.
Right.
And that led to a period of fragmentation and instability.
It's like that saying, hard to build, easy to destroy.
It is.
It seemed like a pretty common theme throughout history.
Yeah.
A strong leader builds something great,
Yeah.
then it all falls apart when they're gone.
All right.
So what happened to all the progress they made during the Carolingian Renaissance? Did it just disappear?
Not at all. Even though the Carolingian Empire didn't last,
Right.
its legacy lived on.
Okay.
Those educational reforms,
Right.
the spread of Carolingian minuscule,
Mm-hmm.
the artistic achievements of this period,
Yeah.
they all had a really lasting impact on the development of Western Europe.
Okay.
It's like they planted seeds
Right.
that kept growing
Yeah.
and bearing fruit
Right.
long after Charlemagne was gone.
So while the political structure crumbled, the intellectual and cultural seeds they planted continued to flourish. That's kind of beautiful.
It is.
It's hopeful.
It shows how even when empires fall, ideas and innovations can survive and continue to shape the world.
That's a nice thought. So that brings us to the end of our exploration of these three golden ages: the Byzantine, Islamic Iberia, and Carolingian France. It's been an incredible journey. I feel like we've really shattered that Dark Ages myth
I think we have.
and uncovered these amazing pockets of brilliance.
Yeah.
It's really changed how I think about this period.
It's a fascinating time period.
But what are some of the overarching insights we can take away from these three very different golden ages?
Oh, that's a good question.
What are the common threads that connect them?
Well, we're back, and we're ready to continue our deep dive into these amazing golden ages you uncovered in what so many people call the Dark Ages.
You know, I'm still kind of amazed by everything we talked about in the Byzantine Empire, Islamic Iberia, and Carolingian France. It's like they all had their own unique way of being golden,
Right?
but they were also all connected in these really interesting ways.
That's one of the things that makes this period so fascinating.
Yeah.
It wasn't just decline everywhere.
Right.
It was this dynamic tapestry of interconnected achievements.
So let's talk about those connections. We've already mentioned trade routes and the exchange of goods.
Right.
But what about ideas? How did these golden ages actually influence each other intellectually and culturally?
Well, think of it like a relay race of ideas.
Okay.
We'll start with the Byzantines. Remember, they were the keepers of all that classical Greek and Roman knowledge.
Yeah, they saved so many texts that would have been lost when the Western Roman Empire fell apart.
Exactly. They were like the librarians of the ancient world, keeping all those precious scrolls and codices safe.
Right.
And those preserved texts, well, they played a huge role in sparking the later Carolingian Renaissance.
Okay.
Scholars from Charlemagne's court, they traveled all the way to Byzantine libraries
Wow.
because they were so eager to get their hands on those ancient treasures.
So the knowledge that the Byzantines had protected helped to ignite this intellectual fire in Carolingian France, like passing a torch, right?
Perfect analogy. And that torch didn't stop there. Remember Islamic Iberia? They were also translating and studying those Greek and Roman texts.
Right.
And they were making groundbreaking discoveries of their own in science.
Oh, right. They were especially advanced in things like math and astronomy and medicine.
Right.
And didn't they also help to bring that knowledge back to Europe?
They did. As Europe started to reconnect with the rest of the world,
Yeah.
scholars, they flocked to places like Cordoba in Islamic Iberia
Right.
to study all those translated texts and learn from Islamic scholars.
So this transfer of knowledge was actually super important for the later European Renaissance.
Extremely
It's
important.
like this chain reaction of intellectual inspiration, right? It starts with the Byzantines, then goes through Islamic Iberia, and then ultimately helps to shape the European Renaissance.
It's amazing how it all connects.
History is rarely a straight line, is it?
You got it. It's more like a web of interconnected events,
Yeah.
ideas, crisscrossing continents, and sparking new discoveries along the way.
So these golden ages weren't just happening in isolation. They were all part of this much bigger story of cultural exchange and intellectual rebirth.
Exactly. And I think it shows us how important it is to be open to new ideas
Yeah.
and to work together across cultures.
Right.
These golden ages, they flourished when societies embraced diversity
Right.
and when they actively sought out knowledge from beyond their own borders.
It's a powerful message, especially for our world today. We can achieve so much more when we're willing to learn from each other.
I agree.
Okay, so we've explored those connections. But what about their lasting impact? Did their achievements just fade away, or did they leave a mark on the world?
Their impact was huge and in so many different areas. Let's start with the Byzantine Empire.
Hmm.
They had a lasting legacy in law, art, and architecture. Justinian's legal system, it influenced legal traditions all across Europe.
Right, and their art. I still can't get over that nickname for the Hagia Sophia, heaven on earth.
It's an amazing building.
And their influence wasn't limited to just Europe.
No, not at all.
Byzantine culture also really shaped Eastern Europe and Russia in terms of religious practices, art, and architecture.
Right. It's incredible how one empire could have such a huge and lasting influence.
Okay, what about Islamic Iberia? What was their lasting impact?
Well, their advances in math, astronomy, and medicine had a long-lasting impact on scientific progress.
Okay.
And we can't forget about their translation work, which helped preserve and transmit all that ancient knowledge.
Right. They saved so much from being lost forever.
They did.
And let's not forget their contributions to art and architecture and music. I mean, their intricate designs,
Yeah.
their use of color, their calligraphy. Those are still inspiring artists and architects today.
Absolutely. And their music.
Oh, yeah.
Islamic musical traditions influenced European music quite a bit,
Right.
and that led to the development of new instruments and musical forms.
It's a beautiful fusion of cultures.
It is.
Okay, so we can't leave out Carolingian in France. What about their lasting legacy?
Well, on top of all of Charlemagne's political and military achievement,
Right.
the Carolingian Renaissance really impacted the development of Western Europe.
Okay.
Their educational reforms, the spread of Carolingian minuscule, and all the amazing art that came out of that period, they all helped to revive learning and culture.
Yeah.
And that laid the groundwork for so much that came later.
So even though their empire didn't last, they kind of set the stage for future renaissances.
Exactly. They helped to rekindle that flame of learning that had been dimmed during the early Middle Ages.
It's like they set the stage for a brighter future, even if they couldn't see it themselves.
And I think it reminds us that even golden ages that don't last for centuries
Yeah.
can still have a huge impact.
Right.
They inspire future generations and really shape the course of history.
I'm starting to realize that these golden ages weren't just these isolated moments of brilliance.
Right.
They were actually catalysts for ongoing progress and innovation.
Exactly. And it shows how resilient humans can be,
Yeah.
how creative and how we're able to progress even when things are tough.
We've really come a long way on this journey. I mean, we shattered that Dark Ages myth,
We did.
explored these amazing golden ages,
Yeah.
and uncovered their lasting impact on the world.
We did all that.
And we learned about the importance of stability and intellectual curiosity,
Absolutely.
being open to new ideas and collaborating with people from other cultures.
Those are important lessons.
It's like we've found this secret map to progress, hidden in plain sight within the so-called Dark Ages.
And that map is still useful today.
Yeah.
It can guide us towards a brighter and more interconnected future.
Well, listeners, that's our deep dive into the golden ages of the early medieval period. I know it's a lot to take in, but I hope it's given you a new perspective on this really fascinating time in history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep uncovering those hidden treasures from the past.